Abrupt Decay pretty effective against that deck, but Kent here playing for this weekend.
Oh, Twitter's so good. It's called fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs is what I was doing. Twitter, just, I love you guys. You guys just always know what we're looking for. I'm going to engage in, fisticuffs is a great word, too.
You know it's also a good word? Pugilism.
I don't know what that word means.
It means boxing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never heard that word before. Pugilism and fisticuffs.
Kind of a couple old-timey phrases.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna try to work that into the coverage this round. I'm not gonna force it. I'm just gonna try to work in pugilism once.
A pugilist is a boxer.
Nice, nice, very nice. Misty Rainforest is going to search up an underground sea.
Looks like Kent on 6 cards by the looks of things.
How did you know that? Just a little thing that you know? Just random words?
I know a lot of random words.
All right. It's got to be The Economist.
That's the major. I think that's the major asset that I bring to the booth is just knowledge of random words.
Deathrite Shaman going to start it up. This is a copy of Savannah. And it looks like we have Andy mislabeled here. He's actually playing Maverick, so we will make sure we get that updated for you guys. We do apologize for that. This is a tropical island. That is a Tarmogoyf. So let's see what Vess can put together here on turn number 2.
Maverick is an exciting strategy to see on the Resurgence. Makes a lot of sense.
It absolutely does.
Gets to play a lot of cards that are good specifically against Treasure Cruise, whether you want to be playing with things like Gadok Teague, whether you want to be playing with Spirit of the Labyrinth. And these sort of strategies are naturally solid against Delver of Secret decks. You have Swords to Plowshares, you have big creatures like Knight of the Reliquary.
We've got ourselves a Mother of Runes here as well. Deathrite Shamans are going to kind of stare off at each other. Now there's an Abrupt Decay. Get that off the table.
This is very important for Kent to have. For those of you relatively new to Legacy, an unchecked Mother of Runes against any sort of creature strategy is going to be a mess.
And now it's 3-4 beats here. Vess will cast Swords to Plowshares on the Tarmogoyf. We'll see if Ketter wants to maybe protect that. You see the Forceful in his hand. Not sure if he has a blue card with it, but he's going to let Tarmogoyf go.
Very aggressive use here of that card, risking a daze. But with Deathrite at the ready, I guess it would have to be 2.
Take a draw. Yeah, I mean, you'd have the Deathrite
it's
stare
the dueling,
you'd have
Deathrite.
Yeah, you'd have the standoff there.
So he is running the risk there.
Yeah. Another copy of Deathrite Shaman. And just pass the turn back. If you can see Vess's hand, he only has lands. A Windswept Teeth, a Cradle, and a Caracas. So not a great hand here for Andy. Ketter's going to sacrifice his Verdant Catacombs, dig a land out of his deck.
I'm curious what role Treasure Cruise does play in this matchup, because there's a lot of creatures Maverick has access to that are good against that card, the ones that I mentioned before. That said, it is a way to overpower the implied card advantage that Maverick gets to generate by locking up the board.
Deathrite's going to remove something here. It's going to try to remove a Swords of Plowshares, and Vess says, actually, I'll remove it, thank you much. You take 2, Kent. So we'll go back Ketter's way. Perhaps that's all set up. We will see.
Will he disfigure the draw for Kent, playing 1 in the main deck?
These players basically out of cards at this point. Vess with just 3 lands in the hand. Ketter has a Force and the Disfigure, which can take down a Deathrite Shaman. So,
and I like loading up on Disfigure in a deck that plays with Treasure Cruise, because you just want cheap stuff to fill up the graveyard, ways to keep your head above water in the early game and allow Treasure Cruise to take over. And Disfigure definitely counts.
Verdant Catacombs will be sacrificed. Momentarily here, I imagine. Stoneforge Mystic was the draw.
Ken not really that interested in using a Disfigure on a Deathrite Shaman because the first one does most of the work, not the second one. But the Stoneforge Mystic may be a better target.
Yeah, I'd rather use it on that. Though we will see what Vess wants to search up. As far as equipment is concerned, he's got a Sword of Fire and Ice, a Sword of Light and Shadow, and an Umezawa Jite. You're not going to find Batterskull in his deck, though, which is a little bit rare.
Well, it's not really a control deck. I think that Batterskull is out of place in decks like this. You naturally line up well against most of the decks where Batterskull would be something that you want to go get. And drawing a Batterskull is pretty bad. So I'd rather just have equipment that you don't mind drawing.
Here's a Cradle. That's going to come down and tap for 3 mana. We normally only see that card in Elves, but there is one to search up here with Knight of the Reliquary. You can do some pretty sweet things with that. Ketter going to try to remove a land here with his Deathrite Shaman, but Vess is going to stop him with his Deathrite Shaman.
This is a desperate stab at Kent to try to generate a 5th mana so he can hard cast the Force of Will.
But it's okay, because he does have a Disfigure that he'll have to cast to get this off of the table. So he has a temporary answer. Disfigure taking care of the Deathrite Shaman.
This is good for 1 turn.
Yep.
After this, not so much.
Somebody needs an Abrupt Decay. Don't get a great look at what Ken drew. He's got a Force of Will, of course, we know that.
There's also 1 main deck copy of True Name Nemesis in Kent's list.
Sure.
That's a very powerful draw here.
It's a very powerful card against Maverick in general.
But he's drawing fairly slim at this point. We're looking at the copies of Abrupt Decay you mentioned. Those are very helpful. 3 copies of Treasure Cruise may find him something. And the 1 copy of True Name Nemesis holds down the ground until Andy can find a flyer. But the rest of his deck is not going to offer much help from here.
There's a Windswept Heath. 2 mana from the Cradle. Equip the Stoneforge Mystic. And Kent will consult his hand, and here's the attack. See if he's got something. See if Vess's draw for the turn was a Green Sun Zenith. The answer is no. 2 counters onto the GT now. And it makes winning pretty difficult.
I feel like every weekend I get to watch a player for the first time, or I feel like I'm just in their fan club. Like when we had the Bloodsow champion build of Bardu do well a couple weeks ago.
Andy Ferguson.
And then he played Affinity the next day.
Yeah.
This was in Columbus, I believe.
Yep.
Andy Vess might be that player for me this weekend. Really like the Hornet Nest all-flyer build of red-green monsters, and now dusting off Maverick for this tournament.
You love Maverick.
Well, it's a deck that I thought was dramatically overplayed a couple of years ago, but now is underrepresented. So I like it when people dust off the old hits.
Here's an attempt at a Green Sun Zenith for 2. Ketter would like to remove a fetch land. We'll see if Vess allows him to do that. Nope.
I appreciate the effort from Kent, but if it didn't work the first time, it's probably not working the second time.
Might be surprised. Yeah, it's time to search up a 2. I got a feeling you might see a Scavenging Ooze here, actually.
And this is another card that I believe has gone up in value. Not a lot of people are playing it right now, but it is very good against Treasure Cruise.
Yeah. And Scavenging Ooze is going to start eating things right away. And in combination with Guy's Cradle, he's got plenty of green mana to just start working on those graveyards.
If Andy's able to untap next turn, Treasure Cruise is off the table. That's not happening this game.
Yep. Well, Ketter will draw, and he doesn't want to play Magic anymore. So Andy Vess is going to win game number 1 here over Ken Ketter. Maverick up a game over Sultai Delver. As we turn our attention to the sideboards, we will start with Ketter, which you have in front of you.
A Pithy Needle, a Thoughtseize, a Crozan Grip, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Disfigures, 2 Flush Storms, 2 Golgari Charms, 2 Vendilion Clicks, 2 Liliana of the Veil. I really like Disfigure and Golgari Charm a lot in this matchup. Pinpoint removal is very important, and Golgari Charm allows Kent to get out of an active Mother of Runes, which is really problematic for his deck otherwise. I think the 1 Crozan Grip is reasonable to bring in, and he's got a variety of equipment. The 1 Pithy Needle can come in against Mother of Runes, Night of the Reliquary, equipment, Stoneforge Mystic, and so forth. It's possible he wants to go to Liliana of the Veil. I've never really been that impressed by the card against Maverick because they have so many throwaway creatures. They're so good at attacking, but some people do feel like paying 3 mana for Diabolic Edict plus maybe some extra stuff is valuable in this matchup. I would not bring it in, but Kent might.
2 Bitter Blossom. Wouldn't want Liliana of the Veil.
Oh.
2 copies of Containment Freeze, 3 Aethersworn Candidates, a Gaddock Teague, a Kosali Pride Mage, another copy of Umazawa's Jite, 2 copies of Zealous Persecution, and 3 copies of Choke.
So
we got a hater in the house.
Choke is pretty solid here, though. It's not quite as powerful against Delver strategies as it is against some of the Esper Stoneblades of the world, because Delver can generate a board and play on very little mana. So the Choke probably still comes in, though it's not a haymaker here. I think the 2 copies of Bitter Blossom are pretty sweet. That's a hard card for Kent to keep up with his normal draw steps. Now, Golgari Charm can either kill the Bitter Blossom or undo the token, so that's very good. I still think it's worth bringing in here. I think the 2nd copy of Umazawa's Jite is nice here as well.
A lot of nice options here on the sideboard for Maverick. I would be very happy if I was Vess. So we'll see how he elects the sideboard as we do move forward here for game number 2. While we do wait, we will talk about SCG Game Night. You may have seen that we are wearing our turtle pins, and this is available every week in December.
Program's been humming along since September to a lot of success. What you see in front of you is the December kit, the tokens and pins that you get to give out. You can run this game night any day of the week, any tournament you'd like, sanctioned or unsanctioned. Just get players in your store for some fun, friendly magic. It is too late to get on board for the December kit, but if you're interested in bringing this program to your store in January, head over to starseedgames.com/game night for more information.
Turtle power, crushing crabs, get a pin. It's lots of fun. You can engage in fisticuffs at your local store.
If you're an aspiring pugilist.
Absolutely. That's what you can do every week in December. You played that really well. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was really well done. Game number 2 going to be underway here in just a moment between Vess and Ketter. Sultai Delver, a deck that Kent has been playing for some time now, even though the changes, with Treasure Cruise, this one seems to be a poor Treasure Cruise deck. It doesn't mean it's a bad deck. It just seems to be, if you're going to be wanting to play Treasure Cruise, I'd want to be in the Jeskai side of things.
The tools are just not quite as efficient for loading up the graveyard. And he's playing with some creatures that are taxing his graveyard on top of that, Tarmogoyf and Deathrite Shaman. Usually you can finagle those cards alongside Treasure Cruise, but not 100% of the time. Compared to the Blue-Red Delver list, is definitely less efficient at using Treasure Cruise. That doesn't mean, as you mentioned, that doesn't mean it's a bad deck. It just means if you're looking to leverage Treasure Cruise, this is not the best skeleton. And as part of that, Kent's only playing 3 copies.
Sure.
A lot of the lists we see, the Blue-Red Delver strategies are always on 4 copies. Yep. It's just so efficient in that deck. Here, Ken only playing the 3.
Well, he is off to a nice start, though. He's sitting here at 4-1. Looks like his only loss was to Corey McDuffie, too. So if you're going to pick up a loss, a really great player like Corey, not the worst place in the world to be in, but he is down a game in what looks to be actually a pretty tough matchup for him.
I think so, too. I think this is a really rough matchup.
And I don't think a lot of people, with these Delver strategies want to play against Maverick, honestly. Now, of course, Maverick does have some holes in its game. Doesn't really love playing its combo decks, but those decks have not been that prevalent recently.
I think it's a deck that's really poised to capitalize on Treasure Cruise Delver decks. Even if it doesn't really want to go out of its way to fight the card Treasure Cruise, which it can pretty easily with a variety of 2-mana creatures afforded to it, it can still just have Mother of Runes, Neither Reliquary, Swords to Plowshares, Equipment. That's a tough recipe to beat, even if you're occasionally drawing 3 cards on the other side of the table.
Which occasionally you are.
Scavenging Ooze, for example, is a great card to be playing because there's tons of matchups where it's excellent in Legacy. Very good at fighting graveyard strategies, which is something that Maverick struggles with, and incidentally, happens to be great against Treasure Cruise.
The big question for Maverick, I think, is, we'll see if it resurges or not, because it definitely has some powerful cards in it. Neither Reliquary, Ooze, as you mentioned, all that stuff is, Death and Taxes is a very similar deck, so which one of those 2 decks is better, or can they coexist?
I think naturally it's an issue of how much you want the green cards. Neither Reliquary is a very attractive card to be playing in a field full of lightning bolts. When the minigame's all sorts of plowshares and just straight destruction effects, Neither Reliquary is not that very good of a threat. But so many of the decks are moving to these blue-red style decks or just playing bolts as removal, and Neither Reliquary can take over the game by itself. So I think that's a big reason to go to the green cards. There's also fewer wastelands, and when you move to a multicolor deck, wasteland's one of the biggest costs you incur. But there's less of that card than they have been in the last couple of months, again, because of Blue-Red Delver becoming the stock Delver list.
Wasteland feels like it's at an all-time low right now.
Yeah.
It really does.
Ken here rocking 4, so not everyone's put them away, but a lot of Delver decks have.
Well, perhaps we have a Wasteland game in front of us as Kent has 2 and Andy has 1, though Kent does have a copy of Deathrite Shaman. Andy going to sacrifice Windswept Heath. He's going down to 19. We'll see what land he wants to search up. It'll be a Plains. Somebody doesn't want to get wastelanded. Mother of Runes? Absolutely.
This is the first test that Ken has to pass. Can he kill this thing?
And you were put to the test right away, too. It's part of the reason I like that card so much. Here's Wasteland.
Kent does get to clean this up a little bit post-board.
True name Nemesis.
Because of Golgari Charm, but this is also a fine way to beat Mother of Runes.
Yep. We'll see if Andy brought in any copies of Zealous Persecution. 2 in his sideboard. that's his way to go about beating this card. He also has a Sword of Fire and Ice to be able to push through it if we get ourselves into a racing situation.
He can also overpower it if he resolves something like Stoneforge Mystic. Ken's not playing with equipment of his own, so this True Name Nemesis is just 3 damage a turn or it's moat.
Yep.
That's still very powerful, but that might be something that Andy can overpower.
Let's see what the weapon of choice is going to be. Sword of Fire and Ice. Wants protection from blue. It has some ups and downs in this matchup. Pro Blue, of course, quite good against True Name Nemesis, but doesn't help you get through Tarmogoyf. Maybe some chump block and be done with Deathrite Shaman, so. See how things do look. Going reaching for a Wasteland. Yep.
Deathrite Shaman and Wasteland, just 2 peas in a pod.
Yeah, got some fuel now. Here comes True Name. Get you for 3. Put you to 16. Let's see what the follow-up's going to be. Take care of the Wasteland. And that looks like a Tarmogoyf. Not a big one. Currently just a 1-2, as there's only a land in the graveyard. Misty Rainforest, kick it back. You see that Ketter does have a copy of Abrupt Decay in his hand in case anything goes wrong. Not a Reliquary to draw here for Vess.
It's a great insurance policy against equipment. The creatures can't be touched for the time being, but if Ken can prevent a piece of equipment from coming into play, it's pretty easy for True Name Nemesis to run away.
If Verdant Catacombs comes into play here for Vess, he will sacrifice that, go down to 15. See what land he wants to search up. See if he has a basic. He does have 1 forest, and he will get that. Okay. So he's been searching for basics aggressively, which is really smart.
Yeah, he can't afford to get Wasteland. He's already behind on the back foot here. Ken has more than enough mana to work with his own Deathrite Shaman plus 2 lands in play, so Andy needs to take every precaution here to avoid getting hit again.
Ketter will draw a card. He does have a Wasteland in his hand, so very smart to search up that basic. Don't know if he wants to deploy it yet or not and give it away, but we'll see. You do see the Abrupt Decay there. Don't know if he wants to use that. Of course, can't take care of creatures, but can take care of the Sylvan Library and grow that Tarmogoyf.
The question here is Kent worried about whatever cards Andy can draw off the Sylvan Library, or is that Abrupt Decay just solely on equipment detail? If I'm in Kent's seat, it's very attractive to say, yeah, just look at more cards. It doesn't really matter too much. True Name Nemesis plus the ability to keep you from getting a piece of equipment in play is probably good enough to win.
He hopes so. Well, we'll see. Wasteland does come down. Deathrite's going to remove a little something. Another Tarmogoyf. So another 1-2. Sacrifice the Misty, maybe. You can tell he kind of wants to. And I think he's gonna.
If he's making a move here to sacrifice the Misty Rainforest, I assume it's because he intends on Abrupt Decaying the Sylvan Library.
That's what it feels like to me, too. I mean, of course, can't take care of the creatures, but maybe he just wants to grow the Tarmogoyfs into 3/4s and say, hey, I'm kind of all in, and I hope you can't catch up and beat this. So he will sacrifice the Misty. We'll see what land he wants to search up here.
Now, the risk with this line of play is, if you're in Kent's position, does Andy already have Umezawa's Jitte? You don't really care too much about Sword and Fire and Ice at this point because you have green blockers if it comes down to it, and Andy's not really in a position to race you. But if he gets Jitte online, suddenly the game can swing around very quickly. I know Ken can pump the brakes with True Name Nemesis, but he doesn't want the game to bog down like that. So
he searched for his land. Got a Tropical Island, but he still seems a little unsure of himself.
well, if he's searching and then saying go, it's possible he respects the possibility of even Mind Sensor and just wants to get it out of the way.
Okay.
Or he thought better of it and said, you can keep the Sylvan Library.
And he got to reorganize some stuff. And now he gets to take a card, which will be a Marsh Flats. There's also Savannah there as well, but opting for the fetch land. Preparing for maybe Stoneforge Mystic. Perhaps it's time to deploy a Knight of the Reliquary. I'll go with the Deathrite Shaman first. And pass the turn back. Mother of Runes out there protecting those creatures, making it so that Ketter doesn't have great attacks here. Interesting thing about this too is that Vess searching up Sword. If you're Ketter, you also have to think to yourself, well, maybe he already has Batterskull in his hand.
Yeah, that's the big risk here. And that's, I think, the reason to sit on this Abrupt Decay is the Sylvan Library, yes, it's a little bit dangerous, but I think the risk of a piece of equipment that matters is that's the real thing Ken has to fear here.
Now, we know that there's no Batter Skull to worry about, both in hand and in deck. But Ketter doesn't know that. So we'll see how he chooses to play here, as that will probably contort his decision-making process a little bit as he comes in here for 3.
I think there's just too many risky artifacts that Andy can deploy here that you can't really go after the Sylvan Library.
Sure.
I think Ken's in a position to damage race with the True Day Nemesis. Maybe the Deathrite Shaman can also get involved.
Ooh, Vendilion Click. With the fetch land sacrifice on the stack. And this is something that we have seen before. Sometimes players get a little too fancy with their fetch lands and their activations of Stoneforge Mystic.
If Vendilion Click may not have been on Andy's radar.
Mm-hmm. Now he has to put his equipment to the bottom. His plan, of course, was to put an equipment in. Now he doesn't have one in his hand. Now he can search with his fetch land. I hope he doesn't forget. Just one card in Ketter's hand, and there he goes. He will get a land out of his deck, but maybe a slight misstep there.
Although I'm not sure if I like Kent putting anything back there. Maybe Sword is more dangerous than the average draw step, but I feel like he can beat the Sword this game, and you don't know what Andy is capable of finding when you give him random draw steps.
The random draw there was just a land, but I do understand what you're saying. That could be much worse for him.
If Andy finds a Zealous Persecution as a result of this, it's far worse than you trying to beat a Sword.
There's a Scavenging Ooze, Deathrite Shaman Ooze, SCGATL. Those are the cards off the library. I don't think we're going to see him pay 4 life here for a card, that's for sure, but SCGATL's not so bad. SCGATL, truthfully, is quite good. There is the SCGATL.
It's a bit unfortunate that Andy doesn't have a great creature to put this on. He has nothing of size.
How dare you talk about Stoneforge Mystic like that? It has power and toughness, Patrick.
It's big enough for right now.
It is as big as Tarmogoyf is. You ever think about that? They're basically the same card. Ketter trying to remove a fetch land again. He just failed miserably every time.
I'm not a big fan of Kent pulling the trigger there, because now he allows Andy to get a mana. And if Andy has, say, Swords of Plowshares in his hand...
That's bad news.
Exactly. I think that Kent's better off just having the Deathrights stare at each other and then untapping.
Yeah. Either way, here comes the 1-2. Ketter's last card's an Abrupt Decay, but he can't cast it. So now he has to decide, okay, what do I care about? What do I do? Of course, with Mother of Runes out there to protect some things, blocks will very likely not be very profitable. There's Vendilion Click gonna step in front. Maybe. See him doing a little bit of counting here due to Mother of Runes.
Keep in mind, if Kent puts the click in front here, even if Andy goes ahead and uses Mother of Runes, that puts a creature in the graveyard. Kent untaps, uses Abrupt Decay to Nomazawa's SCGATL. That puts an instant and an artifact in the graveyard.
Yep.
And now these Tarmogoyfs go from 1/2s to 4/5s.
Yeah, they become gigantic very, very quickly. Tarmogoyf has actually grown down to a 2/3. And that might be problematic enough. Ketter gonna untap. He's got the Decay in hand, and he's gonna be drawing a card. Don't forget about that Wasteland back there. Could mess with mana. He also has an active Deathrite Shaman, so definitely some things to think about here if you're Ketter.
I think he can just pinch Andy's resources this game, and he's going to kill him too fast.
Ketter trying to figure out what's the best way to force through enough damage to get this game over with. And it looks like Tarmogoyf's coming sideways along with Tree Nemesis is what he's decided. Time to block there. And hey, he doesn't have to kill him this turn. He's doing just fine. He can play some more turns.
He'd rather not risk it. These Maverick decks they have so many weird one-ofs that playing a long game, it is risky. I'm sure Kent would like to close this out right now if he can.
Mother Rune's going to get protection from green. It's not a lethal attack, as you can see. It'll be 5 that comes through, if it does. Good Ketter gripping that Abrupt Decay. Looks like he's tapping mana to cast it now. The card he drew for the turn was a Delver of Secrets. And there's Decay on the Jite. And that'll cause a move here from Vess. And not the move I was expecting, but a move that doesn't surprise me.
Yep.
A concession. Ken Ketter's going to win game number 2 here against Andy Vess. Sultai Delver and Maverick headed to game number 3. Pretty close matchup thus far.
That's an interesting last turn there from Kent. The most obvious thing there is just blow up the Jite, and you're wondering why is Kent tanking for so long. Well, you don't know what weird one of Andy has access to in his deck. If he has a Magus of the Moat or something, and suddenly he has that plus other runes, you can't really do anything. The most straightforward thing is to just kill the Jite, which is what Kent did, but it is possible he's supposed to kill Mother Runes in response because Andy might have some weirdo in his deck.
Yeah, that's why you saw him give so much thought. Because, again, as you mentioned, Maverick is a deck that, and truth be told, it might be a deck that Kent's not all that familiar with. It's been gone for so long.
There is the potential for all sorts of oddities in that deck.
Yeah, you just have no idea. So better safe than sorry. Took his time, figured it out, got the W. So we'll see a third game here while these players do re-sideboard a little bit and shuffle up for game number 3. We will talk about Black Friday here with Star City Games. The sales do end at the end of the day, so you better head over to the website.
We'll be rolling out a lot of sales, but the Black Friday sale specifically is ending soon. You're looking for good discounts on booster packs, play mats, lithograms, deck boxes, dice. Head over to the website now.
Even though it's Sunday, still it's Black Friday. I guess it's a weekend thing.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And then Cyber Monday starts tomorrow.
The website still works.
Oh, sure.
It is literally staffed 24/7.
That's good. That's a good thing to do. That's very, very good.
Yep. It still functions.
Cyber Monday. You better come on Monday. You never know what's going to be there. Probably the same stuff. But
you don't know for sure.
You don't know for sure if it's going to be the same stuff, so you should probably come to the website on Monday.
Because if it's something different and you didn't go to the website because you were assuming something, you're going to feel really stupid about it.
You miss out. You miss out on stuff like that. You don't want to miss out on stuff like that.
You're going to feel like Andrew Shrout playing at an open.
Awful.
Shots fired. I can get away with anything I want this weekend.
Can we put that on loop? Yeah, there's got to be a way we can put that on loop.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Both players going to lay out their opening hands. Vess will be on the play. We'll see what he can put together this game.
I'm sure Shroud will get his opportunity to get me down the line where he says something like, well, you know, if Patrick had a Pro Tour top 8, I'm sure he would know that, blah, 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 blah.
Yep. He can always drop that card on you.
Exactly.
You can never do that.
Absolutely.
He's got you there. Do you have a counter for that?
Nope. Oh, he has no Grand Prix top 8s.
Boom. That's your counter.
Yeah.
That's it. Tier 4?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know it was 4 or 5. Didn't want to insult you here in the booth. Mother of runes.
So you shot low?
Well,
let's go back to the match, huh?
Well, touche.
All right, let's go back to the match.
I think Ket might be considering a force of will here. Okay, just a wasteland. Take care of the land.
The old wasteland on the draw.
Yeah.
The last reprieve of the scoundrel. I just hope that Andy doesn't have land number 2.
Trying to get you. Ah, darn, a land. And a Zenith, probably for a Dryad Arbor. Well, the wasteland plan right out the window.
But the Golgari Charm plan potentially
Ooh la la.
Right on schedule.
Maybe setting him up for something greater. Tropical, Deathrite Shaman. Pass the turn back. See what Vess can put together in his next turn now that he's got.
Come on, Ken. Come on, Ken.
Come on, that's horrible. That's what happened when they play a land after you try to wasteland them. You just lose it. And now, Neither Reliquary, you gave them a land in their graveyard. Oh, no. And he's got a Mother of Runes to protect it. It's been a little while since we've seen Neither Reliquary go to work.
Ken has a little bit of protection now. Deathrite Shaman can prevent it from getting too out of control. But that's just the size of Neither Reliquary that he's taking care of there. We have seen before where Maverick gets to spin Wastelands through Night of the Reliquary, and against a deck that has no basic lands, and not a lot of lands in particular, an unchecked Night of the Reliquary can be game over. And he can chain together 4 Wastelands. If he has ways to kill the Deathrite Shaman, that's just it.
It's a Ponder. And we'll see if he's able to resolve this one the way that he likes. He'll take a card. Misty, give me that land. Sacrifice this. Good sequencing. See what the big plan is, though. Saw him go by Corrosion Gripping.
This is a really good turn for Golgari Charm.
Yep. Tarmogoyf. A 2/3. Not terrible, of course, because it's Tarmogoyf, but not all that impressive.
The problem is that Andy's going to lock the ground up real fast here.
Yep. Wasteland comes into play. There's another Mother of Runes. Charm is getting better and better.
And if Andy, I'm not messing around here. I'm going after some lands here.
Yeah, I want to Wasteland him into Oblivion. I think that's what he might do. He's going to sacrifice the Dryad Arbor to the Knight of the Reliquary. Go get a Wasteland. Oh, yes. Now this is how the game was meant to be played. You don't get to do anything. Draw a card.
A Wasteland in case Kent wants to run payback.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Kent started it.
It's true.
Okay, he started this Wasteland fight. Andy was happy just playing some normal Magic. He's just playing a green-white deck. Not looking to do anything too crazy. Cast a Brainstorm, kill you on turn 1. Nope. Want to play a fair game.
The loss was the game that Kent won was on the back of an unkillable, untouchable True Name Nemesis.
Yeah. Fast turn back. Vessel draw. Green Sun Zenith, I believe he found. Not a bad find, as that can turn into a card like Scavenging Ooze. Here's 3 mana. That's a Zenith for 2.
And you can see Liliana in Kent's hand, and this is part of my issue with it in the matchup. Setting aside that, he can't cast it, even if he could, and he's able to scatter the board with enough small stuff, expendable creatures, that it's hard for it to do very much.
Yeah, and this is where things just get really difficult, right? Because, we talk about the Power Knight of the Reliquary. That thing's going to work. Scavenging Ooze looks like it's going to start to go to work on Ketter's Graveyard. It can kind of pick and choose on what it wants to do. But it might be Mother of Runes that's causing all the problems here.
Kent can't attack or block.
No.
Until those are removed from the table. Now, he does have 2 Golgari Charms. He has a True Name Nemesis to that end, but for the time being, he is just waiting for Andy to feel comfortable to start attacking.
Yep. And Andy's in no rush. I wouldn't be either. Deathrite Shaman. At the very least, I want to just remove lands from my opponent's graveyard just to shrink Knight.
Yeah.
Keep that thing in check. Got a bit of a response here. Vess going to sacrifice the Savannah to another Reliquary. That will resolve. He gets to search something up. See what it's going to be. A Cradle.
Nice.
That is totally adorable.
Feel like I've gone back into a time machine about 3 years ago.
I was gonna say, this is like 2011 stuff right now.
Yep.
This is Todd Anderson cutting people up with Maverick. I miss this deck. Eat that land. You don't get it.
And it's a creature.
It is.
Oh, the synergies.
You know what that is?
Good deck building.
Absolutely. Tarmogoyf down to a 2/3.
I think someone might lose their Ponder here in a moment.
Couple more cards for removed. See you later, Ponder. Couple of lands, too. Well, Kent better make this turn count as Tarmogoyf's down to a 1/2 now.
He can't even do the end of your turn, use a removal spell, untap, use a removal spell, because there's 2 Mother of Runes in play.
Perhaps he's going to go Wastelanding.
Well, this is kind of his window to do it, because neither Reliquary is not active.
Yep.
He always has the opportunity to Wasteland the Cradle, but I don't think he wants Andy to untap with that in play.
Sure.
So it seems like a fine point to use the Wasteland here.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, it is kind of tough to guess what you do Wasteland. I mean, Cradle is providing 4 green mana for Ooze. Or do you take care of the forest so that neither Reliquary can't go active and hope your opponent just doesn't ever draw another one? which doesn't seem like the best plan, but we'll see what happens here. An underground C was the draw. And we know that Kent has Abrupt Decay and Disfigure. He's going to go after the Cradle, play the C. But he can't cast these removal spells because of the Mother of Runes. Can't do. He needs G-Charm to start things.
So I was not a big fan of this play here, because what's likely to happen here is that Andy can go get a Wasteland and tag the Underground Sea, and then Kent's not in a position to cast the Golgari Charm even if he draws it. So I think he can only commit the Underground Sea to the table if he's doing something immediately with it. He can't just put it into play.
Land is attacking now. Doesn't even care about that land that's in play. And Ketter, well, we know he's got no good blocks. So Andy will sacrifice his Windswept Teeth, search up a land, make Knight a little bit bigger. We'll see if Kent will let do anything, but this is how Maverick plays if you've never seen it before, and it wouldn't surprise me if you haven't. We haven't seen a lot of it on the Open Series recently, but this is exactly what it does.
Yeah, if you're new to the format, by which I mean you've only been playing for about 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Still kind of experienced.
Yep.
You may have not seen this deck in action.
Pairings and standings are being hosted. At this time, I'd like to remind you to not offer your opponent an incentive for a win. Please do not randomly determine a winner.
Deathright's going to chip away a little bit, eat a land there.
Yeah, but then he can just respond with the ooze.
Yep. And this is a very difficult position to be in here if you're Ketter. Again, because it starts with Charm. That's where things begin. And he needs to find one of those.
And because of the Scavenging Ooze, Kent cannot make mana with the Deathrite Shaman. That card's cut off.
Yeah, it's not happening. It's not happening. And this is kind of the squeeze that normally Death and Taxes puts you in, but that's part of the appeal of Maverick too, is because you get put in a different squeeze, even though, you know, they're both kind of hate bear-esque decks that squeeze you in a different way. You know, the Knight of the Reliquary Wasteland squeeze is one, Scavenging Ooze is another one. Mother of Runes is common in both decks, but they both put you in a different kind of squeeze. I would say that Maverick is better at closing you out because Knight is typically so big.
Kills much faster, and Knight also gives you the option of chaining Wastelands, which is something that Death and Taxes can't do.
Yeah.
Knight of the Reliquary is the defining difference between the two decks. It makes the deck it makes Maverick a little bit less consistent. You have a little more moving parts. Your mana sometimes gets attacked by Wasteland and non-basic hate, but the upside is that you get Knight of the Reliquary, which is in some matchups is a giant beating.
Verdant Catacombs for Bayou.
The standings that are posted are for round 4. We're going to give standings.
Ketter's down to 9.
If you'd like to head back to the boards, please feel free to do so.
See what else Ketter wants to do this turn now that he's got more mana. Again, you mentioned Deathrite Shaman's not going to do much. All Ketter can do is just pass the turn back. Over to Vess. Vess will draw a card. Ketter's going to try to remove a land right now in the upkeep. Going to make Vess use some of his mana on his upkeep. So Scavenging Ooze will remove a land, so Deathrite Shaman doesn't get any mana. The old rock and a hard place here for Kent.
Yeah. Tarmogoyf is only good at brawling, and Maverick brawls better.
Yep. And it's funny because oftentimes this Maverick deck, even though it is a green deck, doesn't play Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, there's no point, because the deck's more about trying to create an insurmountable advantage on the board than attack you for 4.
Yep. Taking a look at Vess's deck list, he doesn't have Tarmogoyf. He's got Deathrite Shamans and Mother Runes. Those are 4 of. SCGATL T, get 2 copies of Qasali Pride Mage, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 3 Stoneforge Mystic, 4 Thalia, 4 Knights. That's it. Doesn't need Tarmogoyf, not one bit.
And you can see why Tarmogoyf's not really in this deck. In a creature matchup, Maverick is almost always the control deck.
And it's very good at it. It's always the control deck, and they can close the game out very quickly, as we're seeing here. Knight is just so big. It's a 5/5 with the potential for a whole lot more. Red zone.
Wired out for players, please find your seats. We'll be starting shortly.
And we may have entered the stage of the game where even Golgari Charm doesn't really get Kent back into it.
There was a window.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's there anymore.
Early on, it would have been lights out.
Yep.
But I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that window's still there. And Disfigure's going to go after the ooze.
Kent trying to make some stab at getting something out of the removal spells that are glutted in his hand here.
You just got to hope he makes a mistake, right?
Yeah.
And you do get to Great Tarmogoyf a little bit. It turns into a 2/3 because there's an instant in the graveyard.
Some
That's
people
a
get
small victory.
Some people get so passive with Mother of Runes that you can still get value out of your removal spells because people just get in this mind state of, I'm not going to use this unless it's catastrophes happening, and then I'll go ahead and use it. But with the extra one left over, I think it's a very good use of the Mother of Runes activation there by Andy.
Tarmogoyf in the bin now. Yep, and Kent is beat. Andy Vess going to win this match here over Kent Ketter. 2-1. Maverick moves on to 5-1. Ketter picks up his second loss. No top 8 for him in this Legacy Open, though number 7 on our Open Series leaderboard. Still looking good for qualifying for the Players' Championship. He's just going to need to have it hold up.